So we were just on break, and we were having fun kind of talking a little bit about some of the history of accounting and some of the fun stuff like that. We had some requests to kind of, instead of playing in the top half of the puzzle, kind of going down to the customer and web e-commerce interfaces. Do we have specific questions on that, or do we just want to kind of see some pieces of the puzzle? What are kind of the needs or thoughts on that? Basically what we'll have you guys do is, if you can, just go ahead and fill in through the chat window, because I don't want to just start blabbering. I'd love to have kind of a little bit of a focus to be like, what would you guys like to learn? In the meantime, while you guys are putting some stuff in through the chat, Shannon will let me know when it comes in. Let's talk a little history on accounting, okay? Just for fun. So one of the things that's kind of funny or interesting, and we were explaining that Adilas, inside of what we do, is we kind of run things along a linear timeline when it starts and when it ends, okay? And then along those places, we actually have these almost little virtual bubbles, if you will, kind of like little holding areas, okay? And I just drew 3 of them there, but basically, if you imagine that full timeline through that, we like to kind of track it this way, because everything has a physical start and end. If it hasn't fully finished yet, then that's okay. You just know exactly to which level it's actually been to and which checkpoint has it passed yet, okay? So that's technically how we kind of do some of the mapping inside of Adilas. Are you in a holding area? Are you here? How fast did this happen? Say you had one that took 1 day, boom, and it just does all 4 or 5 little bubbles, whatever the different category is that needs to happen, okay? So in traditional styles, they actually had a thing called a T account, okay? And what they would do is they would do the debits on one side and then the credits on the other side. And depending on which way they wanted to do it, they would actually balance things going like this. They would have tons and tons and tons of these little teeny T accounts. And then they would try to kind of match everything all together. Basically what this was is this was a paper model for kind of matching and doing things. Well, as technology has improved, what we do is we say, we're going to start a physical object, okay? And it has volume and depth, and we can put things in it. And it can have histories and other containers and photos and histories and states and statuses. And then we take this little object and we move it along over time and advance it through checkpoints. Now the checkpoints are important. You don't want something that was incomplete. Say this one here had a blemish on it, like say that this is a blemish, some piece of bad data or incomplete data. You don't want it to pass through here until that is taken care of. So it needs to stay virtually in this little container until it is. Otherwise we just map back to, hey, you're currently over here. And it's all due to mapping. Like the way that we track things is mapping to the different little containers. And we take the single object and it rolls over time. Once this thing gets fixed and it gets advanced to the next level, let's say that it looks perfectly good again. And I realize I'm just kind of drawing with a little thing and it doesn't look perfect, but pretend that it looks perfect. It was able to advance past the checkpoint. We permission these things out. These are your permissions here, okay? Almost virtual little walls so that you can't pass to that next level based on the permission and based on criteria saying, whoa, you can't do that. I don't even have the main matching the line items. There's no way I'm going to advance you to here. Like, we basically kind of set up the criteria on how to advance the ball. So, Shannon, do we have any information in yet as far as what they're looking for on e-commerce?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking then, and we will roll into e-commerce whenever we're ready. Like, basically, what I'm looking for, guys, if you guys are out there, and those who had questions on e-commerce, what are your questions? Because it's like, what do you want to see? Do you want to see what's possible now, even just a light flavor? Do you want to kind of get some vision of the future? Like, I'd love to know kind of where you would like us to focus, and we will focus on that. So, anyway, in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, Shannon, can I actually have you kind of, this is, as long as we're talking about that little history piece, I'm going to actually jump into another little piece of the puzzle and have you read a couple paragraphs if you're okay with that, okay? We're going to go to the main Adilas.biz website, and we're going to scroll down towards the bottom, okay? I'm going to actually scroll down, and there's a lot of reading that you can do if you would like, but we are going to kind of jump into a section right here. What I'd actually kind of like to do is basically just while we're waiting, and this is kind of what we like to do. Shannon, can you maybe start right here on this paragraph, and we'll just kind of let you read. And actually, let's do this. Let's change spots for a second. That way you can scroll as you need to, and we'll just kind of play. And I'll watch to see what questions come in through chat. But basically, I'm looking for like 3 paragraphs.
Okay. So we also offer some great back-end office tools and accounting features. If truth be known, the reason we are able to offer you accounting type features is directly related to how we track your data and help you do your operations. We at Adilas.biz are actively working on a new and more modern model for accounting as compared to the current, somewhat antiquated, double-entry accounting system embraced by most companies. We can run your operations regardless if you use Adilas for your accounting needs or not. If you are looking for a traditional credits and debits accounting system, we may not be your product other than for your operational needs. However, if you're willing to try a more modern and non-traditional approach to accounting, you will love what we do and where we are headed. Straight up, it is new and different, and we are still pioneering on a daily basis. Here's a little background on the traditional double-entry accounting model that dates back to the 15th century, 500 plus years old. Luca Pacioli. Is it Luca or Luca?
Luca Pacioli.
Luca Pacioli.
You have to add the Italian accent there.
Pacioli. An Italian monk, friar, wrote one of the first math textbooks called Summa de Arithmetica. In that book, he explained about how the Italian merchants kept track of their sales, which we now call double-entry accounting. This guy was a genius and a math wizard for his time, but here's the kicker. This textbook came out in 1494, 2 years prior to that. Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492 to show people that the world was round. People were just coming out of the dark ages and entering into the age of the Renaissance. The only way that businesses could track their data was in giant notebooks called journals and ledgers. They had large rooms with tons of paper copies and went through different processes of recording, adjusting, and posting their data between different journals and ledgers. Sound familiar to anyone?
The reason that sound familiar is like literally accounting verbiage is this. Where's your general ledger? Where's your, like all these different little things. Show me your journal entries. Oh, let me see. Did you post that to the ledger? Like it literally talks about the same model that was 500 plus years old. This is common terminology for accounting type stuff. So
basically, they were trying to track different states and statuses of the data. Some of the processes that they used to track these changes in states of the data were called debits, for negatives, and credits for the positives. These debits and credits were added to things called T accounts. The different T accounts made up a bigger thing called the chart of accounts. The chart of accounts usually had a numeric value and a name associated with it. This is how they tracked things on paper and in different notebooks. These chart of accounts were then added up and used in financial documents called the income statement, or the profit and loss statement, or P&L, and the balance sheet. The goal was to make sure that everything got recorded and accounted for. In order to make things balanced, they had to do one entry on one side and then a matching entry on the other side of the T account, thus the term double-entry accounting. This standard has been followed for years and is currently the accepted way to do accounting. As a matter of fact, most computer systems that do some form of accounting have basically computerized the 500-year-old model and added their own little tweaks to the process.
Okay, and that's not trying to be negative in any way. Like that's basically saying, hey, your Peachtrees, your QuickBooks, your FreshBooks, your whatever, like your Microsoft Money, those are all just standard what's called accounting systems. They have debits, they have credits, they have journals, they have ledgers, it's a virtual computerized model of that accounting practice. Okay, that's right. It is what it is. We actually do the similar things. We just kind of simulate those entries using objects because they're so much more flexible, and how we're trying to use technology to help advance the ball. Can you read one more paragraph? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I haven't seen any comments in on e-commerce yet, so.
Okay. So what makes us so different? Well, we spent the first 5 years working on operations. The original goal had nothing to do with accounting. The goal was to start tracking inventory and other data. We wanted to be able to quickly view things, pull reports, and even be able to show where the data was or what happened to it over time. Through a step-by-step approach to solving our own business problems, we stumbled upon a new way of doing accounting. Basically, once we had the operations in place, and that is a big key, we just kept asking the question, what happens next? We would then build the system out to that level. As we kept going, the path began to be rolled out, and we just kept taking the next logical steps. This process took years and years and was only possible because we kept working at it. Concepts that were only a dream or a wish started to be right in front of us, and we simply reached out and grabbed them.
Awesome. I'm not trying to say that this is anything that's important, but it is important that you know that the Adilas system, the reason we can actually put all of these pieces together is because we start following a logical path, okay? So instead of just doing a random deposit, okay, you go satisfy the invoice first. Then you take those invoice payments and then you deposit them. It kind of connects all the dots and it rolls things forward over time. Like, think of what a mess it would be if you just said $5,000 to the bank. Oh crap, what is that for? Well, I got money here. Like, you're always going to be asking yourself that question. What was that for? What was it from? And basically, I think what happens is that you have to start thinking on kind of a logical level and like, okay, so what is actually going on here? Why did that happen? Your account's payable. Who do you owe money for? Well, something had to have happened. Well, what happened? So what we try to do is we try to actually grab the different pieces of the puzzle from the front end. We enter what we know, and it might even be rough, okay? Check out this analogy. Shannon, can you scroll just right there? Water changing into snow, okay? This is literally what we are trying to kind of do based on these philosophies and these patterns, if you will, okay? Can you read just the little caption on that little thing? I haven't seen anything on e-commerce yet, so.
Okay. How we track the data, your data. Imagine the process of water turning into ice. The water droplets are very loose at first, operations, and slowly become crystals, then slush, and finally becoming completely frozen or ice, your final numbers or account.
Okay, and just so you know, here in Utah today, we actually have snow on our mountains. I know Colorado already has snow on their mountains, but that is good signs for skiers. That's a good stuff. Good stuff. We like that. Okay, go ahead and finish that if you don't
Throughout
mind.
the process, we flag and date key checkpoints of the life cycle or steps in the process. This becomes a built-in history of what was going on at any given point in time.
Okay, great. And we've talked a lot about different checkpoints and processes and different things like that, but literally this analogy right here, water changing into ice, basically operations forming into your accounting numbers. This was developed by Stephen Birkencotter, and literally he took a couple guys, it was me and another guy by the name of Scotty. We were at my house in this teeny little room, and Steve's like, here's what's happening, guys, because like what he wanted to do was, he was the owner of a used car dealership and a trailer dealership. Sure, I'll come up for just a second. Shannon's like, hey, you want to switch? Okay, and so basically what we're doing is we had some questions on e-commerce, and until we kind of get some response back through the chat window, we were just kind of explaining some history. But while we're talking about this, I'll just kind of explain what was going on. So basically, Steve Birkencotter, he is kind of the owner, founder of Adilas. He owned a company and they did vehicles and cars, and so they had little trailers that they would sell to different people and different little things like this, and say little cars and whatever, you know, just like basically they had trailers and vehicles and cars and SUVs and trucks, and what we did is Adilas currently was a custom write-up system for them. What we did is we were able to sell these stock units, which were basically their big ticket items, and then we were able to get in parts and widgets, which created invoices and stuff. And what ended up happening is all of a sudden we had invoices and even payments on invoices but we had no banking entity for that. So eventually what even happened, even through the whole process, is we started here. Say we had invoice and another invoice or whatever. Kind of just, they generally made up some stuff here, okay? And then we had no way to advance the ball. Like basically the system was dead at the end of the invoices. Steve's like, what I'd really like to do is kind of start it here and then take these same invoices and their payments. Let's advance it clear to the level of we're actually going to deposit it, okay? Okay, cool. Now that we've deposited, guess what? The bank now has it. We no longer have a receivable out there, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to become more and more firm, and all of a sudden, we now have some solid pieces that we can stand on because we're advancing the ball. Now, the thing that's important here is, guess what? This process never happens like this. It never happens like that, okay? It always is like some sort of time or some sort of checkpoint or interaction. So those same exact analogies that I did right here when we were drawing kind of the different little bumps in the road, if you will. So let's go like this. Operations is on the top, accounting is on the bottom, and ideally we're trying to get them to match, okay? Now ideally that looks like the best match. However, you can't do that. That is called static, okay? There is no accounting for time. There's no accounting for anything, okay? So what we do is we let it bounce and flex, and then as you pull out further and further, it actually becomes smoother and smoother, okay? So this thing right here that has the little checkpoints, and basically what you're doing, water, slush, snow, ice, like you're just advancing those balls through the different checkpoints. It literally is this model that's actually happening, and time, this little piece, is actually the main piece that was missing. You can't just go boom and just go from water to ice, okay? Something has to happen. It has to advance through a certain checkpoint. You can't have a river that's flowing down. Say you have a river right here, okay? There is no physical way, unless there's some outside interjection, that somebody could basically go like this. Okay, cool, I see it coming down. Woo! All of a sudden it's over here. Like it just can't happen, okay? It has to still flow past that spot. In a river, it might get swirled and mixed and blended and whatever is happening, but it has to eventually come down that path, okay? What I was trying to do is I was trying to tell you what Steve did with a buddy and I in my house. He literally drew a small little sample. We actually have it in some of our archives of like, okay guys, here's what's kind of happening. Boom, a sale happens. You instantly have water. Something happened, okay? Like whether, and don't get too critical on the analogy, but like basically something happened. Boom, I now have something to work with, okay? Let's advance the ball. Check this out. If I actually get the payments for it, aren't those ready to then be deposited? And then we could kind of advance the ball that way. So Stephen Birkencotter came up with this little analogy, and it really, really helped us. Basically, he was teaching me and the other person who was there what ended up happening, and I'm not trying to go into a huge, drawn-out history, but what happened was is my job was to kind of help them build some of the system, okay? And we started building on it. But eventually, I decided that it would be funner to do snowboarding, okay? So snow was a great analogy for me. I was like, oh, sweet, I love that, okay? So my goal, basically what I wanted to do was kind of create like a little fun little snowboarding package where we could show people doing tricks and moves on their snowboard. Yeehaw! Just having all kinds of fun, alrighty? So my goal was I was headed out the door, okay? Steve's goal was like, oh my goodness, look at this whole process. We can actually make this whole thing happen over time and run through these different little checkpoints and all this. Like, he's very business-minded. So I was headed out the door, heading to go make my own little product called Learn to Freeride. It's actually a real product. Well, in the meantime, Steve pulled in another little guy here that needed to help out with some computer work because I was headed out the door. Okay, so he got pulled into the puzzle a little bit. Steve basically said, Brandon, can you please help this guy so that we can build on this dream? So Steve pulled me back in, and the three of us kind of converged, and Steve started teaching us ideas. Look what I think is possible, and this and this and this and this. And so as I got in here trying to help this other guy get up to speed so that I could go do my own thing, what ended up happening was this guy, after a year, he had some family issues come up and some stuff, so he stopped. So it just began to be Steve and I kind of working on this little model of what's going on. So Steve was the brainchild. Look where it could potentially go, and then he basically lined it out in such a way to kind of go like this. Brandon, we're currently right here, okay? This is what I need. Can we get there? Well, we'll probably need this, and we'll probably need this. Like, Steve had the vision and the dream, okay? And then he basically said, Brandon, can we do this? And I said, well, it looks like we're actually going to need to add a little piece right there because I don't think we can just jump there, okay? Great, let's do it. So we build it out to that level, okay? He's like, okay, now what? Okay, now I can actually make that connection, no problem. So we would build the next little connection, okay? If this was the end-all dream, we just keep slowly kind of connecting these little bridges. I probably made it too close because that looks like, oh, heck, why don't you just jump that? Imagine that it's big and there's something treacherous underneath it, okay? What we did is we virtually ended up kind of making, this is what we do inside of Adilas. We create bridges. We create connections, okay? We help you advance the ball by going from state to state to state to status to status. It's this analogy on steroids. We just take it clear to that huge level.